welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope your guys' week is going well and you guys are thriving post-eclipse. I know the vibes are still a little heavy as we're in between eclipses, but just trust the process. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about another transit taking place that we're going to be seeing coming up soon. We're going to discuss Venus ingressing into the sign of Scorpio. Let me know if you have a natal Venus in Scorpio, maybe a Venus-Pluto aspect, or Venus in the 8th house. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click that bell button below if you want to be alerted as to when I have new videos on the channel. We're here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. All right, guys, so essentially this transit's going to be taking place from September the 22nd through October 17th, 2024, and it will be impacting those of you guys who obviously have personal Scorpio placements. So if you have a Scorpio sun, moon, rising, Venus, even the nodes, this is considered a very positive transit for you because Venus brings good things, as well as my Taurus and my Libra risings because your chart ruler is on the move. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video. I'll take you through Venus's transit through the 12 signs and give you some predictions and thoughts as to what this transit may bring for all of you. Now, we're going to be talking obviously about Venus. Venus is going into some deep water when she goes into the sign of Scorpio. And this transit is not just a splash in the astrological pool, it's a very transformative journey into the depths of love, desire, and power dynamics. So let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about what Venus represents. As many of you guys already know, a Venus transit is going to talk a lot about how Venus is going to be expressed. So Venus is the planet of love, relationships, money, beauty, pleasure, but also socializing and our personal style. Venus is about how we relate to other people and what we find aesthetically pleasing. So this is going to be making some changes in terms of maybe how we're dressing, how we're kind of portraying ourselves. Venus will be kind of trading in her kind of pearly colors and pinks and anything revolving around frills for something that's a little darker, a little bit more taboo. Obviously, Venus in Scorpio has a little bit of a different preference when it comes to relationships as well as personal expression. And Venus in this particular sign is not about surface level charm or relationships. She is not interested in fleeting pleasures. Here, Venus is incredibly deep and profound and very, very intense. So you guys are going to feel that shift out in the world as well as in some of your personal relationships. Now, in a nutshell, Venus in Scorpio, this is considered to be a placement where Venus is in her fall, which means that the sign that she's moving through is in polar opposite to where she's generally comfortable in the sign of Taurus. So it's a little bit of a challenging kind of place for Venus to be because she's going through a sign that deals with both Pluto as well as Mars. And these are obviously planets that deal with transformation, death, rebirth, also conflict. This is a Mars-based sign traditionally, so we can definitely see an uptick in intensity, secrets that are kind of going around in relationships, and obviously challenges revolving around relationships and kind of keeping things lighthearted. Like that's not going to happen during this transit. But here, as Venus goes through Scorpio, really what's happening is it's inviting us to explore the shadow side of love. Scorpio in the 8th house is all about the shadow side and the things that sometimes we're afraid to confront, but it's also about vulnerability and healing. Be mindful that some of the themes with the shadow side of Venus in Scorpio might be where passion meets obsession and where depth replaces anything that's superficial. Transformation is a key theme throughout this transit. Venus here is seeking emotional intimacy because it's a water sign, not just physical connection, and really demands authenticity in terms of her exchanges with other people. Now, generally, how this is going to be affecting us out in the world in our personal lives, it might be very different for every person depending on their own natal chart. But with Venus in Scorpio, we might find that we're craving deeper connections with other people. It may be a time where surface level interactions are not going to satisfy us, and we're really wanting a lot more depth and closeness when it comes to our relationships with other people, because Venus in Scorpio wants to like merge on a soul level, so it cannot stand surfacey relationships or things that are not authentic. Collectively, this might be a period where we see a surge in themes revolving around psychological depth in media, as well as art, and possibly even politics, where hidden truths are likely to come to light. Now, one thing you want to be mindful of during this transit is that there can be themes coming up revolving around loyalty in relationships, loyalty and trust. Because Venus in this sign has a difficult time engaging in those things. And as I said in a previous video, when Venus goes through Scorpio, or when you have a natal Venus or Pluto aspect to your Venus, there is this theme of, till death do us part. It wants to commit to one person and it wants to stay with that one person. And sometimes it can kind of drive itself crazy a little bit, questioning whether or not that connection is secure. So be mindful that, in relationships throughout the following next couple of weeks, we need more trust in our connections. We need more clarity in our connections, and we need to be able to kind of work out some of our fears or hesitations, discuss them more, and really focus on how we can transform our relationships to other people. We're going to be preferring environments where there's mutual respect with others, whether that's our colleagues or our partners, and we want to make sure that we can rely on them and that, we're giving the same thing in return. There will be themes revolving around intensity and focus as, this particular placement of Venus. If you have this natally, you know that you're drawn to work that demands, intense focus or research even, to the point of like being obsessed with it. So this can mean that if you're in a role that's involving research or investigative journalism, psychology, or any field that's related to Scorpio topics, there's going to be a lot more emphasis on this over the next couple of weeks. This is also connected to the fact that, whenever we have a planet in Scorpio, it wants to get to the root issue of a situation or a matter, and it wants to kind of clear it out or transform it in some way. So if you're somebody who's going through some real big changes in regards to your relationships, sometimes healing techniques or even therapy can be really helpful during this transit, because Venus can help us transform the way we relate to other people using some of these things. We might see an uptick also in interest in transformative projects. So think like renovations, transformations, redoing something. This is where Venus does very well, especially in like aesthetics, design, home renovations, all of that stuff, because Scorpio is all about facilitating change. So if you have an interest in doing some of those things, you can. That can also mean that there can be opportunities for like corporate restructuring or any job that really involves rebirth or renewal. Now, you can't talk about a Scorpio transit without talking about power dynamics, and you guys are really going to feel this because as we're coming into the Venus ingress into Scorpio, Venus is going to square off with Pluto. So it kicks off a little bit early. But I think, a natal Venus in Scorpio is generally very aware of power dynamics in their lives and their relationships with other people. They have a tendency to navigate this with like an instinctual sense of control or a desire to understand other people and the dynamics at play to achieve their goals, and sometimes use some manipulative tactics. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're manipulative per se, but strategic in how they kind of approach other people when it comes to making moves. Privacy and boundaries are going to be really important over the next couple of weeks as well, because this is a transit where Venus really wants to form deep bonds, and in order to do so, they will express the need for clear boundaries regarding their private life. We might find that we're a little bit more inclined to be working in environments where, personal space is being respected, and we may not be feeling like we want to share as much about our personal lives with other people unless we feel like we can deeply trust them. Now, if you're somebody who has a natal Venus in Scorpio or Venus 8th house, maybe Pluto-Venus aspect, you might resonate with some of these things. But generally, style is a huge theme when we talk about Venus transits. So when I think about Venus in Scorpio, style, it's dark and it's intense, right? Like they lean towards things that are darker, richer in color, deep purples, blacks, reds. And their fashion is meant to kind of reflect something revolving around their inner intensity. So we see a lot more leather, lace, anything that suggests like mystery or depth. And obviously we're coming into, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, the fall. So you're gonna see a little bit more of kind of like witchy or kind of spookier Halloween styles, darker hair color, darker makeup. And so this is a really interesting time because Venus is gonna make some really nice aspects throughout this particular transit. So it can be a time where if you're wanting to update your style or your aesthetic within your home, or if you're wanting to kind of like get rid of old clothes, recycle, donate stuff, it's definitely a good time to do that. Now I find that even though they have a flair for what's dramatic, usually Venus in Scorpio is a great time for finding timeless or classic pieces of clothing. So it means that, you know, you might be opting for things that are going to be staples that aren't necessarily kind of following trends. And we want to look for quality over quantity and really kind of reflecting on the value or the appreciation of some of the pieces that we're going to be kind of picking up in the fall. They like symbolic accessories, so that can be jewelry or accessories with like symbolic meaning or secret meanings, or like lockets with things that are hidden or things that have some kind of hidden significance, like antique pieces, occult symbols, or items with personal sentimental value. So this is something you guys can watch for. Scorpio placements are always known for their eyes, at least in a natal chart. And I think that when I connect Venus and Scorpio, I think about eyes and like sensuality. So there might be more of an emphasis on really paying attention to the features within our eyes. And that could be eye makeup, it could be changing lenses, changing glasses, and a little bit more of like a bolder or kind of like sultry look to be enhancing some of your guys' eyes already. But Scorpio doesn't have to be about a bunch of stuff. Actually, it has a tendency to be more about like a minimalist kind of style. So some of you guys don't really need a lot to make a bold statement. I think it's also about these shifts in regards to how we're carrying ourselves. And, you know, Venus in Scorpio has like this quiet power that commands attention without even shouting. So it can be a very kind of basic ensemble, but something that's a bold statement that doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles. Scorpio is a water sign. So throughout this transit, we're going to see some water trines. So be mindful that we're going to be paying attention also to our emotional comfort. So comfort clothing, you know, that will align for you, or maybe picking up garments that feel like armor or a second skin, or anything that makes you feel protected or powerful. But also it's a really great time to be like decorating your home, making some changes aesthetically to your home as well, because we're going to see some aspects to Mars in Cancer. Something else that I like about Scorpio placements is that there is an emphasis sometimes on renewal or recycling things. So Scorpio's association with transformation can have us kind of more inclined towards looking for clothing that's ethically made, or you know, potentially vintage, or something that's like upcycled fashion. So if you're wanting to like sell stuff, or if you're wanting to buy something new, you might be looking for things that are going to fall along those lines. Now let's talk specifics in regards to what we're going to be seeing throughout this transit. As many of you guys know, I give you kind of like the bullet points, and then I get into talking about the major points of the transit, and then I'll take you guys through that and show you on the chart. But throughout this transit in September and October, the big ones for me are going to be when Venus comes into a trine with Saturn in Pisces. Beautiful aspect. This is where we're going to see, you know, Venus forming this trine with Saturn, and it's going to be about harmonizing this blend of the two planets. So it's about deep emotional connection and structured, you know, commitments and something serious. So this is where love can get more serious, commitments can get more serious. That can be in a romantic relationship where you're having that talk about, you know, what you guys are doing and where you're going. It can be also in business relationships, and, you know, relationships with clients or other people. Financial transactions, contracts, and agreements might go smoother under this transit as well. So we always love to see trines in astrology. This is where the energy is free flowing. And obviously it's water trine, so it's going to be about where we're kind of settling into things emotionally and feeling a little bit more stable, secure with money, maybe even with relationships, and the changes that are happening here. So even though Venus, is a positive planet, the trine to Saturn can represent the transformations that's happening in our joint resources, our savings, our investments. And for some of us, it may feel like cutting our losses or cashing out of something or, making a change in a relationship has been a long time coming. And even though it's emotional, it might be easier for us to do it under that transit. So look for opportunities to enhance commitment, basically. I think that this can be a time where we're not really just looking for like flings, but building a really strong bond with other people, and relationships and money can take on a much more serious tone. We can also see that there can be opportunities to strengthen our values with this particular transit. So this is about finding out or figuring out what truly matters to you when it comes to love, beauty, or finances. So you might find yourself like valuing depth, like I said, over something superficial. This can lead to purchases or investments that have a long-term lasting value. I look forward to the opportunity with Venus trine Saturn to really kind of get a hold on emotionally mastering something. I think that's going to be probably the best way to kind of express that particular aspect, because this is going to be about combining Venus and her emotional nature with Saturn's discipline. And this could mean that we're handling our relationships or our money with more maturity. It can also really help us heal past emotional wounds and find healing through this transit, because it's going to be stabilizing for us. And then obviously Saturn can be associated with work, responsibility, career, superiors. So there is this nice blend between Venus and Saturn here, where our personal desires and our professional responsibilities are kind of working simultaneously together. This can advance our career through partnerships or artistic endeavors, and it'll likely be with people that really align with our deeper values. So chef's kiss right there off the bat. One of the more challenging aspects that we're going to see throughout Venus's trek through Scorpio is going to be when Venus makes an opposition to Uranus and Taurus. Obviously, with Uranus and Taurus, Venus is the dispositor. So that opposition is really kind of reflecting, Uranus, being kind of destabilized in the security, financial, maybe even, self-esteem department, right? Where things are kind of like fluctuating and they feel like they're all over the place. So this is a more challenging aspect. This is where we don't really know what's going to happen when it comes to love and money. We might see some kind of banking issues or some kind of breakdown of some kind. And this can bring sudden changes to relationships or financial situations. That's what you need to know about that opposition. Expect the unexpected. That's the best thing I can tell you. Some of you guys, it may manifest as something positive, because oppositions can be relational. So you might, meet someone who turns your entire world upside down, or there could be a sudden shift in how you're managing or handling your financial assets. Towards the end of the transit, we will see Venus come into a sextile with Pluto and a trine with Neptune. So we've got a lot of outer planet aspects that are going to be taking place throughout this particular trek. The sextile to Pluto, I think, is going to be nice, to be honest with you, because obviously Pluto is one of the dispositors of Venus, meaning because Venus is moving through a Mars-based sign, we're going to look at both Mars as well as Pluto throughout this transit to see how Venus is managing with some of the changes. Thankfully, she'll trine both. So I think that change can be good, even though it's scary, and it can really help us evolve and kind of get to where we want to go. But this aspect of Venus sextile Pluto is an easier flow, I think. It's like a Venusian aspect, the sextile. And this is going to promote transformation in love, basically, right? Venus, love and relationships, Pluto, transformation. So relationships under this transit can undergo significant changes. They can come a little bit easier. It can kind of feel like it's often changes for the better, potentially kind of, leading to a much more connected or intense bond where both partners can transform each other, leading to deeper emotional connections. And man, Scorpio and Capricorn, these are both signs that deal with like control and needing to be in control. So there can be this sense of like letting love lead the way and not feeling like we always have to kind of have like a death grip on something. We learn to kind of move with some of the changes. And this will happen at 29 degrees, which is a critical degree as well. Now, we do see themes revolving around financial power with this one as Venus sextiles Pluto, But this, I think, is good opportunities for financial growth and transformation. You know, some of you guys might see gains through your investments, or you might be leveraging your resources in new ways. And often shared or joint finances become a theme with this particular aspect, as well as inheritances or tax or insurance related matters that can come up here also. But yes, control and power. So we can see that there can be issues revolving around control and power in the foreground of relationships or personal projects. But I think the sextile is really encouraging us to address the issues in a very constructive way, leading to empowerment rather than power struggles. And obviously Pluto is about regeneration. So as Venus sextiles Pluto, you know, there can be an energy where there is a rebirth going on in both your Scorpio and Capricorn area of your life, be that in love, art, or personal style. Some of us might feel like we're shedding old skin and, you know, embracing something new or something more authentic and a new version of what it is that you value after this particular transit. And then at the same time, Venus will trine Neptune. And this is a nice aspect. It's about, you know, spiritual or romantic fantasies that will be peaking. Love might feel like a fairy tale, but beware of illusions whenever you're dealing with Neptune. And we might find that artistic expression is reaching new heights. So there's going to be a lot of action going on with the outer planets. Obviously, when we start the Venus in Scorpio transit, it's also going to be taking place on the 22nd. So it's going to be during the equinox. So we also want to look at where Venus is throughout this particular transit because, well, we're in Libra season, which is ruled by Venus. So for the most part, I see it actually being pretty fortuitous. You know, the opposition to Uranus can throw us for a bit of a loop, but we can find that actually the changes that come can be incredibly productive, really helping us be more tapped in, emotional, sensual, and even creative. Now let's talk about the pros and the cons of this particular transit. The pros would be depth, right? And you can't talk about Scorpio without talking about sex, because this is the sign that rules sex and connection and regeneration or pregnancy or anything revolving around a profound understanding of our desires and our values. So as Venus goes through here, we might become really conscious and aware of, man, I just really want this, or my emotions are telling me, you know, I need to make this change and it's going to be better for me, or intuitively feeling like, you know, that's what this person is kind of, their agenda is, so this is how I'm going to navigate it. So it's not going to be as obvious as some of the other transits that might be in like an air sign or an earth sign or a fire sign. It's going to really push us to kind of listen to our intuition and our emotions more. Now the cons, and there's always cons with any transit, even though there's some very, very good aspects, is obviously, you know, Venus in Scorpio in its fall, Venus in aspect to Pluto. We can definitely see an uptick in jealousy and possessiveness, 100%. There is this all or nothing approach when Venus is in Scorpio. You're either in or you're out, and if you're in, you're all in, and you have to stay devoted, and if you're out, it's like you're dead to me, right? And I know that a lot of people who have some of these aspects that I've been talking about, you're laughing and you're like, yes, that's definitely what it's like. But it's hard for a Venus in Scorpio to let go, right? There is this difficult sense of grief and longing, and you know, you go through all of the range of emotions as you're going through grief before you get to the other side of it. So be mindful that there can be opportunities for harmony and changes in relationships throughout this period, but pleasure can be challenged, commitment can be challenged, there can be more turmoil, and it can be situations that are kind of like boiling over that you were not aware were kind of lurking in the shadows. Part of this is, like I said, because Venus, you know, is in its fall in this particular sign. Venus is uncomfortable here, right? She feels vulnerable, and it's not just about love, it's about control, it's about depth. And this discomfort in this particular sign, it forces us to grow, even if it's through a difficult experience. You know, Scorpio is a sign that deals with death. So as we see some of the aspects between Venus and Saturn, we can be saying goodbye to old relationships, to old homes. We can be walking away from situations that have been really painful for a very long period of time. But if you guys can work with some of the trines to Saturn, as well as I think to Mars, I think it could be a much easier time to go through that change. rather than waiting, right, until, you know, Venus goes into Sagittarius and rips off the bandage as it squares Saturn. Like, that'll be a much more difficult time to make change. Specifically, you know, Venus in Scorpio is also a really good time to be focusing on reproductive health, anything revolving around also like intimacy matters. That's why I said, you know, therapy or psychology or couples counseling can be really powerful throughout this transit, having the support of another person kind of work through things. And also aesthetics that require significant change. So I think of like Scorpio being needles and scalpels and things that might be regenerative. So if you're wanting to do anti-aging stuff during this transit, for example, if you're wanting to do microneedling, or if you want to go get your Botox, or if you decide, hey, I want to get a tattoo, or maybe I want to get a piercing, or I do want to dye my hair darker or radically change my wardrobe, then even though Venus is in her fall, you know, the aspects to Saturn as well as I think Mars and Neptune are going to be wonderful times to do that. So I know you guys are always asking me, like, when do I get plastic surgery? When do I do this? I can tell you when the transits are better, but really it's going to come down to your natal placement. So this is why it's always important to consider talking to an astrologer, consulting with an astrologer about your personal chart before you undergo any major surgical procedures, aesthetic things, anything like that, as well as investments. This is going to be a transit where a lot of people are going to be interested in making changes, maybe pulling money out of 401ks, reinvesting, looking at investing, because Scorpio deals with joint assets or taxes. So you guys are going to be seeing a lot of that stuff coming up as well. All right, so let's look at Venus's trek. Obviously, I know you guys are watching this a couple days early, but you're not going to see Venus come into Scorpio until the 22nd of September. But I just want to remind you that Venus's ingress starts with a bang, because Venus hits 29, right? And remember, Venus rules the South Node in Libra, where there's all this karmic undoing that's going on. We're clearing stuff out in regards to relationships. We are ready to say, you know what, enough of this, or I'm finally, you know, putting this to rest, or I'm finally kind of cutting this relationship off, or realizing or recognizing that maybe we're falling back into some of our old patterns in relationships. That's what happens with the South Node. So right off the bat, Libra season starts, we look at Venus, and obviously this is baked into the equinox chart. So it's showing us for the next 3 months, hey, relationships, they're under pressure, big time. 29 degrees is a critical degree. It's like a final degree before it tips into Scorpio. 29 degrees, Pluto in Capricorn. It's only here for, you know, another maybe, 7-8 weeks, and then it's going to move back into Aquarius. At some point throughout this transit, Pluto will go direct, which is going to have an impact on this as well. So you want to think about that particular date. I'll make sure I make a note of that. But when Venus squares Pluto, Venus is challenging Pluto. And she's basically saying, hey, I see all of that like shady shit that you're doing, you know, or I see the power struggle or the manipulation. And Venus is in its domicile in Libra, which means like it's at home. And she's also in a superior position. So she's saying to Pluto, you know, we're going to stop you because Libra is a partnership. Or this might be the day that your partner says, like, why are you being so difficult? Or your therapist says, hey, I think it's time to like really let this go, you know, and acknowledge that something has maybe had power over you for too long. And we need to recalibrate the scales. Thankfully, you know, right after this particular square, Venus starts moving out of Libra, and it's going to go into Scorpio. And so I think that this is kind of like the appetizer, and it's setting the stage for being like one way or another throughout the Venus and Scorpio transit, stuff's going to change. Are you going to do it the easy way, or are you going to do it the hard way? And we do see like more jealousy. We do see more conflicts, fights, you know, issues with diplomacy. We might see some, partnerships being made, or people coming together, or people trying to kind of like pair up and challenge the long-standing order or status quo. You know, maybe we see two employees that feel like they're getting picked on, and they decide to kind of take it up with, you know, upper management and be like, this manager's not doing anything, you know, challenging and working together to work through some of these really heavy Pluto transits, which I think in their own right, I mean, it's a whole other video that I've done. If you guys haven't seen the Pluto retrograde Capricorn video, check it out, because I talk about how we have until now in mid-November to finally put an end to something. So you may feel like on the 22nd, through a relationship or an outside, you know, relationship with somebody else, they come in and they show you what needs to change. Obviously my cardinal risings, right? Or risings or placements. So if you have a late degree, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, we're talking 27, 28, 29 degrees, you're feeling the squeeze. And so are my early degrees, 0, 1 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You guys are feeling this as well. So it can be a little bit more critical for you. Now, the same day, we will see then Venus go into Scorpio. So it's going to be later in the evening. She's in Scorpio. So once Venus is in Scorpio, we are keeping an eye on Pluto and we are keeping an eye on Mars. All right. I know there's a lot of moving parts here, but a lot of you guys watch this not just because you want to understand what's going to happen out in the world or in your own life, but like a lot of you guys are learning astrology as you watch this. So Libra season, we watch Venus. Venus is in a Pluto Mars based sign. So we're looking at Pluto and Mars. Well, what can I see from this? A couple days later, moon's going to conjunct Mars. We are going to see the moon trine Venus. So that's more change. We are also getting ready to see, it's still a little ways away, but Mars is starting to come into an opposition with Pluto. And that's going to be happening throughout the fall. So we're already seeing that there's going to be some power struggles through the opposition with Pluto revolving around our emotions, our home, our family. And we will see that also play out through Libra season with some of the squares. But Libra and Taurus risings, this is the day that you want to watch because Venus is going to go into a new part of your chart. And even though it's moving through a sign that's challenged, it's moving through houses that's actually really good for you guys. So I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. All right, so then on the 28th, obviously a couple days later, we are going to see the next aspect. And this is, you have to look for it, but it's there. Venus is going to quincunx or inconjunct the North Node. All right, so on the 28th. So we've got Venus at a 6, quincunx the North Node. It's hard to see. But the one thing about the quincunx is that it's kind of rubbing each other the wrong way, right? And obviously these are both ruled by Mars. So what does it mean? You know, relationships need to undergo some kind of change. Joint finances, insurance, maybe interest rates, things revolving around debt, what we need to transform in regards to our personal resources, because Venus is tied both to Taurus as well as relationships, and something that's just not sitting right with us. Right? So it's an uncomfortable angle. And both the North Node and Venus is connected to Mars. Venus is not trining that quite yet. But that can be a day where you're like, I don't know, something's off. My gut's telling me something, this isn't right, something, I'm missing something, you know, and it just feels like unless we make these necessary changes in the Scorpio area of our life, we're never going to be able to get to where we want to go with that North Node in Aries. So it's kind of in conflict with one another. Now, on the 4th of October, this is where we see the first good aspect involving Venus. So Venus will be in Scorpio still. It's going to trine Saturn, and it looks like this day, so you're going to have like the 4th and the 5th of October. Yes, we have a fallen Venus, right? We have a fallen moon. It's not comfortable there as well, but the 4th and the 5th, the moon and Venus will come together. So there could be more sex, more pleasure, more indulgence, you know, there could be more drama, but it's going to come together and it's going to trine Saturn. So this is a day where we assert our boundaries in relationships. We assert ourselves more in our finances. We say, enough of this. This is not good, or this is poison, or this is toxic, you know. That can be coming up. And we're also starting to see Venus come into a trine with Mars. So I actually really like the 5th as the moon goes through here. Even though both of these planets aren't happy here, we're going to see some mutual reception because the moon's connected to Cancer, Mars is connected to Scorpio. There's something that's kind of going on where it's all kind of tying together. So the 4th and the 5th is when we're like, yes, I will make change. This is change I can commit to. P.S. Saturn is about skin. It's about older age. It is about our bones. It is about our feet. It is connected to our immune system and water and hospitals and health and mental health and drinking. So the 4th and the 5th would be a time where it's like, I'm going to make this change, but I'm doing it for the better. I'm doing it to improve my health, my immune system, my money, my relationships. Like, what a great day to go and get any anti-aging, regenerative type of work to your body, if that's something that you guys want to do, especially if it involves microneedling, or if you want to do like anything that's going to be, age reversing type of stuff. I actually really like that with some of the aspects on the 4th and the 5th. So there's a couple dates for you guys. Then we look at the 5th, and I don't have this on my list, but I want to show you the Venus Moon connection. And when Venus and the Moon come together, we're feeling a little bit more lovey-dovey, right? We're feeling a little bit more sensual and romantic. And when it's in Scorpio, people are either going to be like fighting or they're going to be fornicating, especially with the trine to Mars. So it can make people very passionate, very sexual, very kind of tapped in, or very dramatic, emotionally reactionary, hitting their wall and being like, this is enough. It's going to be one or the other. We see extremes with Scorpio. But with Moon trine Saturn, we can commit to something that we're really finally done with, or we can kind of get some clarity about something that we need to finally end, or we need to complete. And it can be scary. Change can be scary, but the 4th and the 5th are good days to make changes, to love, money, and relationships. All right, on the 8th, this is another aspect that I like. This is when we're going to see Venus trine Mars. And Venus and Mars are lovers. They always want to be next to each other, but it's not all that often that they are with each other, moving together. So the trine is free-flowing energy. So we've got Venus, which is the goddess of love and romance, in a harmonizing aspect to Mars, god of war, sex, passion, pleasure, resources, regenerative stuff. Still picking up a trine to Saturn. So this is another day that's good for some of that stuff. You're not going to reap some of the benefits you saw on the 4th and the 5th because the moon's not going to be there. But when Venus and Mars, ruler of the North Node and the South Node, trine, we can see that the battle of the sexes just kind of calm down a little bit. We can work well with partners and relationships. We can work well with clients. There can be some mutual understanding and agreements and kind of like win-win for everybody involved. North Node and South Node in Aries and Libra is literally about whether or not we can have diplomacy. This is going to be also about politics, and this is going to be about whether or not we can see that diplomats are working well together. So sometimes trines manifest in a way where something enhances the qualities of the signs. And these particular signs are about endings, completions, and conclusions. So 18 degrees is not a great degree. This is a degree where I see people have issues with health. I see people have issues with their jobs or coworkers or being laid off. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see more waves of people being laid off in the fall, as much as I hate to say that. So I'm kind of speculating with Venus at an 18 trine Saturn that the completion and the ending is going, hey, we can't continue this, we have to let this go. Or it could mean, hey, this is not healthy anymore, or we need to make the necessary changes to make some shifts in the way that we're eating, the way that we're spending. We could be talking to somebody about how to better navigate our finances and preparing for the end of the year or coming into 2025. Some people might be using this transit, especially with Venus trine Saturn and Venus trine Mars, to start getting things in order, getting your receipts, getting everything ready for your tax preparation next year. And it sounds early, but I think that these would be some good transits to start kind of getting that in order, or reviewing what has happened or what money you've spent or made in 2024, because we're getting ready, we're going basically through Q4 here pretty soon. Anyway, same day, the moon will also square Saturn, and we see Mercury at the degree which we had a solar eclipse last year. So I think with some of the quincunxes and stuff, it is possibly changes regarding around relationships or jobs. I think either one of those are possible. And remember that, with this particular trine, Venus is in her fall. She's usually happy in Taurus or Pisces or Libra. So she's not doing well in this particular transit. Even though the aspects are nice, the relationship she's making into other planets is good, but she's still not entirely happy. And we see some other aspects here where Mars is in its fall, right? So it's kind of debilitated moving through Cancer. It doesn't like being here. So it's not able to take action in a linear, fast fashion. It's emotional. It wants to stay where it's comfortable. It doesn't want to get out of its kind of routine or its habits or the past. So this could be a day where we see if we kind of stay and we hold on to old habits or bad habits, where it could actually create some conflict or some issues that's coming up in relationships, essentially. So that's going to be a day to watch. All right, so the next two transits have nothing to do with Venus, but they kind of do in a very indirect way. So on the 11th of October, here we go. On the 11th of October, Pluto will go direct. All right, so Pluto's direct. Where is it? There we go. In the late PM hours. But this is important because Pluto is having an effect on Venus. All right, so with Pluto retrograde, stuff is being exposed. We're starting to see the breakdown. There's issues with control. There's issues maybe with leadership, bosses, government-related things. And obviously that nasty 29 degrees of Capricorn is definitely about some of the corruption, crime, manipulation, some of the dirty deeds that are being done by leadership and people like up at the top. So when a planet goes direct, right, when it's stationing and it's getting ready to go direct, sometimes we see themes revolving around that particular planet out in the world. So at this point, the moon will have just passed Pluto. So we are feeling something, some kind of intense pressure around the 11th of October. We will also see the moon oppose Mars. So let me go back. Let me show you. So the moon will conjunct Pluto. We are all on like emotional power struggle overload. And it has just come out of an opposition with Mars. So it's looking like pretty much all day on the 11th, it's, you know, purging, moving through some kind of crisis. There being more themes out there about crimes, conspiracy, all of that stuff. It opposes Mars. People get pissed off. And then we see Pluto go direct. So the 11th, the 12th maybe, it's going to be a day to watch. And I say this because of Pluto's direct influence with Venus. We're looking at Pluto, we're looking at Mars, and they're starting to oppose each other. So Pluto's like, hi, I'm awake. Now I'm doing all of my dirty work out in the world. Exposure, exposure, exposure. Drama with leadership, it's at 29. And we look at Venus, and what's Venus starting to do? Oppose Uranus. I am filming this, what day is today? I don't even know what today is. I'm filming this on the 18th. And this is as we're getting ready to hear from the Fed. So it's probably happening as I'm recording this. So I don't know what they're going to say. But there's all this back and forth about interest rates and what's going to happen with interest rates. And we're gonna obviously lower interest rates, but by how much? And this is important because Scorpio is about debt, and it does deal with interest and the money that can be, you know, paid off with credit, and you know, what you essentially you're paying for all the things you own. So this interest rate is going to have a huge impact, I think, on what we start seeing happen economically over, you know, the next couple of months. Obviously, people want to hear, yay, interest rates are coming down. But the problem is we're kind of at a place right now economically where even if the interest rates come down, and thinking it will incentivize people to go out there and buy cars, buy houses, and do things, a mass majority, I think right now, of people don't have the money to do that. So the interest rates coming down, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's either that or, you know, they stay the same, and then we start seeing, you know, a recession popping up. But the problem is with the interest rates coming down, even though it sounds good, they're gonna have to print more money. So we're gonna see actually more inflation, right? That's what's gonna happen. So I'm anticipating that as Venus starts coming into an opposition with Uranus, which will be at a 26 degree, that people are gonna be like, oh my God, like, our prices going up again, you know, we still can't afford things. Scorpio deals with oil. It also deals with gasoline. It can deal with rich, you know, minerals in the earth. It can deal with things that are deep that we have to kind of excavate and bring out. So I think it's the setup basically to be like, there's about to be some shocks and surprises revolving around losses. 8th house Scorpio can be losses where the 2nd house is gains. And so there can be some major reversals and things kind of flipping around with with the market. All right, and then on the 13th, once again, nothing to do with Venus, but still honorable mention here, we are going to see the sun come into a square with Mars, right? So Venus is the dispositor of the sun. The sun is squaring Mars. Mars is the dispositor of Venus. And sun square Mars is like, you feel like you're running into a wall, you know, we're just kind of like conflict. And there's conflict revolving around the actions we take emotionally within our home, our family, our private life, you know, our kind of domestic environment. And it's at odds with relationships. So the setup for conflict with relationships in home, problems with family, you know, people separating or having divorces or things where people are having to move, right? This is after, by the way, the eclipse. There's that Libra eclipse. I'll show it to you in a second, but we'll have the Libra solar eclipse on the 2nd of October. So we're going to see a lot of relationships change after that eclipse. Maybe not immediately, but we will see over the next 6 months as that kind of unfolds. And I look at where ego, action, and the spotlight is on relationships, and the sun is conjunct Juno. So our actions, our ego is tied up in our partnerships and relationships, and how that's at odds or some kind of conflict with our emotions, our home, or our family, right? Lots of like drama with in-laws and relationships, and where, you know, people are arguing over costs of things and expenses. And then Venus, which rules the sun, is starting to oppose Uranus. Things are going to get really chaotic in mid-October. Like I went through it, but now that I'm like really processing it, I'm like, Sun square Mars is definitely going to bring up actual conflict, hostility, attacks, right? And you guys have heard me say that domestic abuse issues and that kind of stuff is generally, I see that on the rise with Mars and Cancer. But these two planets, both the sun and Mars, are coming into an opposition and a square with Pluto. So this is a wide T-square, but it's there, right? It is there. Mars is also now in shadow, by the way. So from the time that Mars is at 17 degrees or so, it's already in shadow. So it's in the place where it will retrograde back through at the end and the beginning of the year. We're going to see like almost 6 months total of Mars in Cancer. So that sun square Mars is showing us where we can either use diplomacy, mediation, come together with other people to make a change or make a move, or be able to kind of squash something or deal with it. Or we get crushed under the pressure of the sun square Pluto, even though this is in a superior position. Very same aspect that you guys are going to be seeing on the 22nd as Venus was coming into the square with Pluto. You know, Libra is the midpoint between Capricorn and also Cancer. And if Cancer represents our home, our private life, our family, our home country, whatever, and Capricorn deals with authority, you know, leadership, maybe bosses, career. You know, South Node Libra is like, okay, you know, some relationships will crumble under the pressure. We will see some relationships change and shift. And that's going to lead to the status change. And some people will go, well, I went from, you know, being a business partner with this person to now I run my own business and I'm independent. Or I went from being married to now I'm separated. Or I went from being single to wanting to change my dynamic, square to Pluto, and now I'm deciding to join up with this person and now I'm moving, right? It's not all doom and gloom. But cardinal squares are active. And then you throw another piece of the puzzle in and you look at, oh, look what's going on with Chiron. Chiron's in opposition to the sun. Square Mars, 21, 21, 21. And it's a square to Pluto. We see a grand cardinal cross. 21 degrees. It's a Sag degree, so it's going to be about international stuff. So 21 degrees, where we see all of that kind of align. Foreign country, everything foreign of origin, foreign state, foreign abroad, foreigners. Highways, main streets, boulevards, avenues, everything of large size, broad, big, extended, horses, horsemen, horseback, race course. Tennis players, legs, hips, bones, modeling, fashion, publishing, to publish books, journals, film, art, cinema, videos, religion, priests, religious names, colonels, generals, higher education, university students, studies, wholesale, import, export at the border. Where is the moon? Conjunct Saturn and Neptune. So the 13th of October through, say, the 15th, stuff's really popping off. And, you know, any which way you slice it, you know, Chiron in Aries talks about woundings of individuals. The opposition to the sun is where we seek support from other people when it comes to our wounds. The square to Mars talks about where it can be bringing stuff up that needs to be dealt with emotionally. We can be finding the right partners, the right support systems, you know, the right therapist to help us move through it. But I wonder if this is going to be about some issue revolving around a border of a country, and where we are seeing stuff that's going on revolving around foreigners, and how that can really provoke Mars being in a square with the sun, and that suddenly it's feeling the pressure of Pluto, and somebody or something or some country is feeling under attack. I don't like saying that. I really don't. Especially when the moon crosses within 48 hours, Saturn and Neptune, right? So let's see, what are we on? We're on the 13th. And then on the 14th, Uranus opposes with Venus at 26, which is a banking degree. Banks, ATMs, wallets, exchanges. This is also going to do with like food and resources and stability. And we see the moon come in between Saturn and Neptune. This is the same place that we had that Pisces eclipse. So you'll feel some reactivations as the moon goes through there, some of the same effects. Well, when the moon's conjunct Saturn and Neptune, it feels stuck, it's confused, doesn't know what it wants, it's scared, it's isolated. We do see more themes revolving around borders and immigration because that's what Pisces is. And then it's going to start coming into a quincunx with the sun. 13th, 14th, 15th, to me looks quite tumultuous, to be honest with you. All right, then we've got on the 17th. Oh, let's see, let's go back a little bit here. All right, so on the 17th, Venus sextiles Pluto at a 29. And, oh, it looks like actually Neptune was at a 27. I take that back. Let's go back here. So looks like the Venus-Neptune trine is here. Okay, so it'll be with kind of with the moon. All right, so on the 15th is when we're gonna see Venus trine Neptune. Looks like it's gonna be in the evening. So this is that creative, whimsical, spiritual vibe, right? Like Neptune can blur the lines. It can be about music and art and inspiration and spirituality. And then the trine to Venus is a day where we're feeling inspired to write, dance, paint, you know, create. And this is about transformations of love, and where sometimes we're able to take that heartbreak or that grief or that sadness and we're like, okay, I'm gonna make something with it. You know, it might be a day where you feel inspired to be like, I'm gonna start writing a movie or a novel, or I'm going to start painting, or I'm going to create something. And this is also about compassion and dissolving anything that keeps us blocked from love, right? All right, so that'll be the 15th, right after the Venus-Uranus opposition. So those two are kind of happening around the same time. Still watch out for scams, you know, and things that aren't entirely too clear, because that can happen with Neptune aspects. And then finally on the 17th, we are going to see Venus sextile Pluto right before it goes into Sagittarius. So this is the sextile, where we're learning to transform, transmute. You know, we are learning to change just with the sextile to Pluto, but still at critical degrees, right? And it looks like, unfortunately, the day that we have Venus sextile Pluto, we're saying, okay, I'm willing to make this change in my relationships or my resources, or, you know, I'm done with the pain. I've healed. You know, that's what's so beautiful about Scorpio going into Sag, is that Scorpio does represent that death and the rebirth. And then as planets go into Sagittarius, it represents the renewed faith, the philosophy, the experiences, you know, the wise sage that's kind of been through the hellish relationship or has been, you know, down and out financially, and then it's like able to have appreciation for where it's been. Venus sextile Pluto, nice, but once again at critical degrees, so we're still dealing with power and control issues, especially over money and resources. And we're going to get a little snaked because it looks like the moon that day in Aries will conjunct Chiron, square Mars, oppose the Sun, square Pluto. Also known, aka October 17th, the full moon in Aries from hell. Full moon conjunct Chiron, ruled by Mars, which squares the moon and it opposes Pluto. Oh, the more I look at October, I just want to cringe. I'm trying to find the positive in all of this. I would take a grand cross any day over a T-square. Because when you have a T-square, which we saw earlier in the month with some of the aspects between, you know, Mars, the Sun, and Pluto, it makes one area, which was Libra, the focal point. And with the South Node Sun in Libra, it's like, well, maybe we do have to have the breakup now, or maybe we do have to, you know, have the squabble, or we have the fight, or, you know, I have to cut this client off, whatever happens, the undoing of relationships to the South Node. At least when you have a grand cross, and it doesn't matter if it's fixed, cardinal, or mutable, although mutable squares are easier to manage, in my opinion. This means that there is going to be some kind of action or impact or something that's going to take place in the Aries area of your chart, which is going to set this off like a firecracker. And obviously a full moon in Aries, it's highlighting this theme revolving around, well, what are our own needs? And what about my emotions and my feelings? And where am I taking action and doing what? Healing myself outside of relationships to other people. Notice that the Sun and Juno are together, right? So it's about partnership and identity and relationships and commitment and who we align ourselves with. And do we align ourselves with the wrong people? And do we create some kind of pain, you know, to ourselves? You know, where are we losing our own identity? And then here's the ruler Mars in a square. And then moon will quincunx Venus. Going to be tricky. I think having a full moon with Venus at 29 degrees, even though it has nothing to do with that, we're really looking at Mars, is saying that there is some critical changes happening with love and money, right? Like, man, mid-October is just not, it's a very fierce month. So we may feel the influence of Venus sextile Pluto as being like, yeah, now this must change. This has to shift. So it's going to be pretty significant for everybody involved, because when we see Venus and Mars aspects, you know, because it's influencing obviously the nodes, like we see change. And full moons are definitely going to pack a little bit harder. Like there's going to be more big things happening on full moons because of the moon's influence with Mars. So when you see like the moon influenced by Mars and the Mars influenced by the moon, it's mutual reception, but they're both pissed off. And, you know, you also see that it's the focal point of the T-square. That's kind of scary. Yeah, that's going to probably be bringing up issues revolving around diplomacy and, you know, finding it difficult to be diplomatic, and where it's bringing up threats potentially of some kind of conflict on the home front or some domestic issues. And then Mars is in opposition to Pluto. I mean, you know, none of what I'm telling you guys has anything to do with what's going on in the world. It has nothing to do with in my mind, it has nothing to do with the election. It has nothing to do with global politics. It has nothing to do with the financial situation. This is the astrology, and the astrology is reflecting that October is definitely the month where, you know, the shift hits the fan. So the positive, because I want to find the positive in this, is that there are some really, really, really great aspects throughout this Venus transit. The trine to Mars can make us much more passionate and I think connected in alignment with other people, and be incentivizing us to make change, even if that means it's emotional changes with our homes or changes with our family. The trines to Saturn can be great about making a plan, committing, sticking to it, you know, paying attention to our emotions. Where you're going to feel the rug pulls is going to be the Venus opposed Uranus and the Venus sextile Pluto on the full moon in Aries on the 17th. So with that being said, let's take a look at where Venus is going to be moving through the 12 rising sign houses. As always, I'm a Western astrologer, so that is what I practice. I like to practice Western astrology. I do not practice Vedic, so if some of this sounds a little weird, maybe it's because you're used to listening to your Vedic readings. Let me put it on a day where Venus is going to be making an aspect so you can see it. All right, so we'll put it there. Listen for your rising sign first. That's what you want to be listening to, because that's going to give you the very house in which Venus will be transiting. After you've listened to your rising sign horoscope, listen to your sun and your moon sign, okay? So your sun and your moon sign are going to give you more insight as to how this is going to be manifesting for you. Any personal planets in Scorpio, Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, north node or south node in Scorpio. If you have your natal Venus in Scorpio, pay attention, because this is going to be, I think, bringing you positive things. Actually, I think it's kind of funny, like when the world's zigging, Scorpios zag, you know? So when other people are going through things, you know, a lot of Scorpio placements are kind of built for this. So you guys may manage these transits a lot better than some of the other signs. All right, so let's start with my Aries and Aries risings. So you guys will be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Scorpio, moving through your natal 8th house. Now, Venus rules your money, your resources, your financial spending power, as well as your committed one-on-one relationships, partnerships, clients, spouses, your marketplace, people who you work with. So as Venus is moving through your 8th house, there is going to be much more of an emphasis over like the next month and a half when it comes to your resources. This is also about transformation in relationships. There's more of a likelihood or a possibility of an inheritance and some deep psychological changes that can be happening for you throughout this month. Pay attention to your debt usage. Pay attention to the need to go a little bit deeper in relationships and to be better about practicing intimacy. I think this is part of the theme. I think you're going to like the trine to Mars, your planetary ruler. I think this could be about remodeling, investing. It could be about refinancing. That could be something else that you could see that could be happening, and people being a little bit more generous and a little bit more sensual with you throughout this transit, okay? Let's pull you a tarot card, because we all could use all the help we can get. You get the Lover's card. So I definitely think this is about soul relationships, karmic relationships. Right? So intensity and passion in relationships, sexuality, divine love, deep soul connections, choices, harmonizing with other people, romance, and unity. All right? So that's a pretty good card for you guys. So let me know how that plays out for you, Aries and Aries risings. All right, so you got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, what's going on? Your chart ruler's on the move. Venus rules your chart, and Venus is in the 7th. So if there's one of two places Venus likes to be, it's going to be in your 1st house, obviously, your 6th house where it's been, and now your 7th house. So Venus rules you. It also rules your habits, coworkers, daily routines, and your health. But when Venus transits the 7th house, she likes being there. You know, that's where she can be more diplomatic and be connecting with other people. If you're single, somebody may come into your life. If you're looking for more clients, people can kind of show up. If you're looking to spend more one-on-one time with your spouse or your partner, you can do that. This is going to be about intense one-on-one relationships and possibly a transformative situation going on involving a partnership or a marriage. So you may be the one initiating the change and the transformation. And what's interesting is that while Venus rules your chart, Mars rules your 7th, and they will trine. So it's going to be about transformation of communication, transformations revolving around relationships with siblings, maybe neighbors, changing cars or vehicles, you know, planning a trip with a partner. Those things can kind of come up. And how you're communicating to your partner about your work, your health, or your schedule. Okay. Let's see what Taurus gets. They get the Knight of Swords. Yeah, with Mars in your 3rd house trine, I could see that. So this can be bringing people in, right? This can be bringing people in who are air signs. So Geminis, Libras, and Aquariuses. But this is about ambition, fast thinking. This is about success, and that being through assertive communication, being direct. Sometimes you can notice you can be a little impatient and a little bit more daring, but focusing on travel, communications, contracts. So you could be making announcements with this card coming up as well. All right, good luck, my Tauruses. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys will be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Scorpio. It will be moving through your natal 6th house. Well, truth be told, Gemini, Venus does not always do well in the 6th house. I find that this is where we're having to do work on relationships. We have to work better on our health. We need to indulge a little bit more in organization and routine. And obviously it's moving through a sign that is not really in alignment with you. Scorpio quincunxes you, so it's sometimes a little bit more challenging to deal with these particular transits. Nevertheless, this can bring an opportunity to deepen your work relationships. You could meet somebody at the gym, you could meet somebody at work or in the workplace. There can be major health transformations taking place. There can be like a new or intense like health challenge or regimen that you're implementing during this transit. Now, Venus rules your 12th house of hidden affairs and 5th house of romance and creativity. So you could be saying, well, I'm making more time to date, or I'm making more time to work on my creative projects, or, you know, I'm looking for somebody to help me with my personal business or to help care for my children. But Venus here, sometimes it gets a little agitated because it's like there's so much work to do, and work, you know, relationships require work, or, you know, there's just a lot of things that you're having to be healing or kind of cleaning up after. And it can be relating to your coworkers, your kids. And it can also be about kind of trying to find a better mind-body balance because of the 6th and the 12th house that are getting activated here. Work, 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 especially trines to Mars and Saturn. I think you may have like a female that comes in and helps you with some of your work. You know, it could be an assistant or just like a coworker or somebody who you end up becoming friends with at work. That's possible here as well. The card that you get is the 4 of Wands, which is about celebrations. Okay, so this is homecoming, celebrations, harmony, partnership, family, friends. This is also about your stability and coming together with other people and feeling like you belong. If you've been looking for a job, I think with Venus trine Mars and Saturn, this can be a card that's saying like you're celebrating the fact that you found your place where you feel like it's going to be a good fit, or you found a new office, or you found a new gym, or like a new health schedule that's kind of like resonating with you. So the changes will be positive. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You'll be experiencing Venus's transit through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 5th house. So like I said, you know, the water trines, right, are gonna, I mean, everybody's gonna benefit from them, but I think the water signs are really gonna like it. So having Venus go through your 5th house is definitely gonna be enhancing passion in relationships, you know, dating, meeting people, creative projects, you know, children come into the mix sometimes, or creative endeavors taking a deeper, more passionate turn. Venus for you rules your 5th house, your 4th house, and it also rules your 11th house. So it's possible that, you know, maybe you're going to like family gatherings and you meet a romantic partner. Maybe there's parties and celebrations for female children or younger children. Maybe you go to a friend's house for dinner and you meet someone. You know, there could be more socializing and togetherness, but the 5th house is romance and dating. So if you're wanting to get back out there and meet people, I think with Venus in a trine to Mars, it can be a wonderful time for creativity, children, pregnancy, or dating. And with Venus trine Saturn, your 7th house ruler, it means that you might meet somebody, or maybe you're going on a vacation with a romantic partner, or maybe you're traveling to visit children or vice versa. And that could be like really fun and exciting. But I like Venus in the 5th house because we're willing to take risks and kind of fall in love here. So I'm rooting for my Cancer and Cancer risings, because I think that if some of you guys have been trying to get out of old patterns in relationships, this can be a transit that can help you do that. And it can also mean that if you're in committed relationships, there's like an enrichment period where maybe now the next step is like, okay, you know, do we move in together? Do we get married? Do we have a kid? Are we making time for like date nights? And it may be a time where you may benefit from like doing a little bit of traveling when Venus is in aspect to Saturn or Neptune. I think that could be really good for you. Okay. For you, I get the Six of Cups. Oh, this is the soulmate card. So this is about reconnections, nostalgia, childhood, memories. This is also about meeting people that feel like they're familiar, innocent connections, reunions. This is about comfort and pleasure in relationships. So some of you guys might meet somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, I connected with this person so deeply, or I'm reconnecting with somebody that I haven't seen for a while, or I'm reflecting on who I've been with and I'm questioning, do I go back? Those things can happen. Keep in mind, Mars is coming into shadow when we get to the beginning of October. And that means that it will retrograde through your first house. Well, it rules your fifth. So you'll be reflecting on, do I want to reconnect with an old boyfriend or girlfriend? Do I want to get back into dating? Do I want to have another kid? Whatever. And it'll be an aspect of Pluto. So some people will be like, I'm in a relationship that's done. I know it's done and I've met somebody else. Do I go there? Am I open to the idea of relationships again and like reconnecting? So that can be connected to this card. Anyway, let me know how that goes, Cancer and Cancer risings. I'm curious. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys will be experiencing Venus's transit through Scorpio in your natal fourth house. Obviously, this is moving through a sign that squares you, but Venus moving through the fourth house, I think, is actually a pretty nice transit. This can be a time where you're putting much more emphasis on home and family. So it can be home and family might see a transformation, deep emotional shifts in how you view your roots, a woman coming to stay with you, a female from work, or one of your parents, or like an older relative coming to visit you, or maybe you're going home and visiting. Obviously, you just had an eclipse in your third, so I'm wondering, are some of you guys visiting siblings? Are you moving and looking for a new place? Are you, redesigning things in your space? One thing I will say is because Mars rules your home base, with Venus trine Mars, I feel like some of you guys are going to go, I'm looking for a new home, or I want to renovate something, or I want to, totally tear out the bathroom and redo it, or the kitchen and redo it. I want to gut something. And Venus trine Saturn might mean that you're receiving support through like joint income with a partner, or it could be that you're refinancing something, or maybe you're receiving an inheritance and it's helping you pay for the changes, or some of you guys might be actually inheriting property or real estate. That can happen here too. But Venus in the fourth is like comfortable home, spending time with family, bringing in some new designs and some new decor. So I think with Venus trine Saturn, it's more out with the old, figuring out what you're getting rid of, or what you're changing, or where you're moving, and then where you're actually going to be like going to, or what you're going to be bringing in. So right now it's about kind of clearing out. Very emotional time, feeling kind of cozy being at home with that transit. The card that I got for you is the Ten of Swords, okay? So you guys are one of the signs where it might be about ending something, okay? And usually Venus brings positive things, but the sun hasn't gone into your fourth house yet. And the fourth house lord, Mars, will oppose Pluto. So it means that some of you guys are going to be like, I'm either needing to relocate somewhere, or I'm thinking about moving to another city or another, country. It can mean that there is endings that are being brought up here, which can come up, which can actually go a little bit more smoothly. But Ten of Swords obviously is like painful endings sometimes. It's about feeling like disappointed, or where there is like a crisis, or there is some deep wounds that you're needing to kind of heal, and recognizing that something has happened that you can't let go of. So it can be more emotional. It doesn't have to be, like tragic. And it can also represent, I think, where there's been some disappointments and now finally getting to a point where you want to heal some longstanding issues, maybe emotionally, with your relationships to your home or your family. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You'll be experiencing Venus's transit through Scorpio in your natal third house. For you guys, this is going to be obviously enhancing relationships and communication. So communication can become more profound here. Secrets can be revealed with Venus and Scorpio in the third house. Deep discussions, talks with siblings or neighbors. This can also be a time where you're making some investment, right? Venus rules your second house of money. It also is connected to your ninth house of education and travel, where you're making some investment, or maybe you're signing a contract, or you're signing a lease, or you're buying a new car, or you're looking for a luxury vehicle. That could be happening with Venus in the third. Luxury purchases in general. So this might be like you're getting a first class ticket, or maybe you're deciding that You know, you're wanting to invest in traveling and going somewhere. You're investing in education. What I like about Venus in the 3rd house is that it's going to trine Saturn in your 7th. So it's going to open up relationships and communication in relationships. And like through traveling, you can learn more about other people, or you can be talking to a partner about moving. And obviously the trines to Mars in your 11th is very social. So I don't see it necessarily being a challenging transit. I think it's like a lot of moving parts of socializing, traveling, connecting with people, meeting with people, communicating with partners about what your boundaries are and what you need, or getting to know new people. And it might mean that you're finding love, you know, locally in the neighborhood, or maybe like on an app or like a messaging kind of platform. That might be a good place to meet people. In terms of like vehicles and cars and stuff, just be mindful that while Venus does promote purchasing or buying something new or trading up, the fact that Mars is coming into an opposition with Pluto does make me feel like you want to make sure you're not feeling like you're having to do things because you're keeping up with other people. Like you might be looking at what other people have, whether that's relationship-wise, car-wise, resources, and you're like, I want that. And don't take on more than you can chew is my advice with some of the aspects that are going to happen with Mars retrograde. Okay. We've got Queen of Cups. So Cancer, Scorpios, Pisces can come up with this placement, and we have Venus in Scorpio, so there can be connections, communications with some Scorpio person or Scorpio woman. So this is about being compassionate, warm, caring, intuition, working on healing, supporting, going with the flow, and being empathic or practicing empathy. Communication, talking to people. How do you feel? What do you need? You know? What would you like to do? What sounds good to you? Like learning how to really ask other people so you can focus on finding like a common goal between the two of you. And this might be just approaching conversations in a much more kind of sympathetic way. Good luck, Virgo. All right, we got Libra, Libra rising. You guys will experience Venus transiting through Scorpio in your natal 2nd house. This is important for Libra risings because you're ruled by Venus. So Venus is moving into the 2nd house. It's also connected to your 8th. Good news is even though Venus is in its fall here, Venus likes being in the 2nd house because it's about spending power, money, resources. You know, it is going to be about a powerful period, perhaps in your work and your career as well. Can be about luxury purchases, money coming in, and what you're doing with it. So when Venus goes through the 2nd house, you know, values and finances do undergo a transformation. It, to me, looks positive because of the aspects to Saturn and Mars. You know, there could be this feeling of making significant financial decisions or a reevaluation in regards to your self-worth. So with Venus in the 2nd house, you indulge a little bit more. You know, you'll indulge more on food, wine, clothing, that kind of stuff. But Venus will trine Saturn in your work zone, which means that money is coming because you're working hard for it, or transformations are happening with your spending habits or your eating habits because you've changed your habit or your schedule. And Venus will also trine Mars in your 10th house, which is going to really help you grow and expand and bring more recognition to your work. And Mars is connected to relationships. So I really think Libra risings are going to enjoy this Venus-Saturn-Mars trine, where there is an alignment with the right people, and the right people are showing up to help you. And whether that's, you know, new employees, or if you're hiring people to help you, or if you have business partners, there's like a sense of really kind of getting a little bit more recognition. And obviously it's happening right after an eclipse in your sign on the 2nd. So that's also bringing some attention to you as well. So there's definitely a lot of growth going on financially and professionally. I've got the Knight of Pentacles. All right, pretty great card to have Venus transit the 2nd house. So this could be talking about a Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. But this is about making practical, reliable choices when it comes to your finances. This is also slow and steady and hardworking. This is about being committed, grounded, patient, efficient, conservative, and pragmatic, which is so good because usually Venus goes in the 2nd house and it's just like, yeah, you're gonna buy some stuff, you're gonna indulge a little bit more, and your 8th house ruler is in a trine, which means like as long as you're working, you're able to afford some of the purchases, and you are practicing some sense of moderation because of the trine to Saturn. So you're committed to your routine, or, not just stopping when you get a little bit of results. You're like, no, I'm going to keep going, like slow and steady. you know, Mars will retrograde in your 10th house. So for a lot of Libras and Libra risings, they're going to change direction with their career, or they're going to take a step back and rework or rethink what direction they're going in, or they're going to have some kind of significant change in their status, which is going to be impacting the direction of their life. So you might be kind of going, okay, I'm working hard to a certain point, and then I'm taking a break, or then I'm stepping back. So this could be a really powerful earning period right now. Okay. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpios and Scorpio risings. Obviously, Venus is transiting through your sign. So if there's one place we like to see Venus, it's in the first house, because it's making you look even more beautiful than you already do. It's about aesthetics. It's about style. It's about love. It's attracting people in because it's in your first house. So there's going to be more allure, more charm, more sociability. Venus rules your 7th house of relationships, of partners, and it's in your first. So this is where you kind of just bring people in, and it's like magnetic. So if you're single, great time to just be aware that that vibe is out there and that people are seeing you, and it's about kind of being a little bit more open and not being standoffish or afraid or kind of prickly. You know, people will walk up to you, talk to you, socialize with you because they're drawn to you with your 7th house ruler in your first house. But this is a good time where if you're looking for a therapist, if you're looking to promote products, if you're looking to sell anything, like, you know, you can get a lot of attention with Venus in your first. Also working with stylists, working with therapists can be really positive with that transit as well. Healers, karmic relationships might come up because Venus also rules your 12th. So there can be some self-undoing patterns with Venus in your sign. There can be a tendency of being like not seeing when people are interested, or people show up and you're kind of standoffish because it's connected to your 12th house, or you don't see it. But the positive is that you can be drawing people in who you are meant to meet or meant to connect with. And this might also have you more spiritual, more tapped in. You might be feeling more creative. But it's about personal transformation. And I think like a new you might be emerging right now. So if you're wanting to make changes to your body, your style, your hair, your aesthetic, right? Good time to do it. Venus will obviously trine Saturn. So I think you're going to be thinking a lot about, well, who am I and what am I creating? And whether that's a business, if it's a kid, if it's a relationship, this is going to help you kind of feel a little bit more creatively inspired and also open to, you know, maybe dating again if you're single. So it can be a very romantic time, especially just after this eclipse you had in your 5th house. And Venus will be in a trine with Mars, which is your chart ruler. So that means you're taking action, initiating relationships, and traveling, talking, learning, establishing a relationship with a teacher, mentor, a foreigner. Maybe even focusing on something that you're training or some kind of certification that you're getting, right? So it's something that's kind of really expanding or broadening your horizons. And Mars is in shadow. So that tells me that there may be a period of time of you working through the retrograde. And maybe you're thinking more about, well, where do I see myself in the long term, and what steps am I taking to kind of get there, and how can I focus on what I love or what I'm most passionate about? And likely if you do that, it's what's going to be the most fulfilling. It's what's going to make you happy. All right. I've got the Star card. I love it. So this also has connections to Aquarius, you know, where Pluto is going back into pretty soon, by the way, which is pretty big for Scorpio and Scorpio risings. The Star card is about healing. This is about hope, renewal, miracles, rejuvenation, faith. This is also about kind of feeling like you have found your northern star, your purpose. This is also about inner clarity and positivity. Okay, but this can be talking about an Aquarius coming in or something to do with an Aquarius. I feel like this is about you kind of feeling like you've come out of a period after some of the transits and the retrogrades where, you know, now you're like, okay, you know, come my birthday, there's a new year, new me. And like you're really hitting restart. And so I feel like Venus is moving through the places where you're going to start doing some of the emotional and the aesthetic changes before the sun starts coming into your sign and Mercury, and you're going to see more of that right around your birthday season. Okay? Great for healing, emotional healing especially. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You will be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Scorpio through your natal 12th house. So this is a little bit of like a passionate, intense, some kind of private or sometimes taboo behind the scenes romance is happening. Obviously, Venus rules your house of friendships, and it also is connected to health, healing, your work schedule, your workplace. So Venus going through the 12th house is about inner work. This is about spiritual transformation, perhaps also dealing with hidden enemies. So it's possible, obviously touch wood, there can be certain friendships or certain working relationships that you realize are like toxic and you're like, this isn't working for me, or I can't have this, kind of person involved in my life. And you start to kind of process that and realize that. There can also be this theme of subconscious issues coming to light. Okay, so revolving around health and habits and self-undoing habits, maybe where emotions get off, where it affects your habits and then it affects your health or your sleep. And also anything revolving around some changes going on in relationships. So it's kind of building off of that eclipse that will be in Libra. So there could be like a friendship falling out that could happen. The positive, because it is positive, is that, Venus is going to trine Saturn in your 4th house. So that completion or that ending of some kind, that habit, whatever, is meant to give you better emotional health and stronger stability when it comes to your emotions and your home and your family. Also, we've got Venus trine Mars in your 8th house, and that's talking about joint resources, finances, things revolving around inheritances. So these trines are good, but they're happening in water houses, which tells me that changes with women in the family, changes with joint resources, changes also with relationships can be coming up for you, and they can feel very emotional. I know you're a fire sign, but this is a lot of water for a fire sign to manage. I think all of the fire signs might feel a little like, and it's happening for all of you guys in places that deal with some significant endings and completions. And so this is about processing emotions, letting it go, and recognizing and realizing that the time has come and that maybe some of these living situations, relationships, or financial situations were not good for you. And you can kind of like make peace and be like, it's okay, it's time to let it go. And with Mars coming into shadow, which is the dispositor of Venus, it does tell me that probably towards the end of the year, there's going to be some back and forth going on revolving around a tax matter, an insurance matter, an inheritance matter, recouping money that is owed to you, dealing with some kind of mortgage or some kind of like financial situation where somebody lent you money and you're having to pay it back, or you're going through that. And so there can be some sense of being like, okay, I know that time is coming for me to kind of work through that and kind of like settle out any emotional or financial or karmic debts that essentially are due. Okay. The card that I got for you is the 5 of Pentacles, which is not an easy card. The 5 of Pentacles is about feeling left out in the cold. This can be about financial challenges or financial loss. It does talk about feeling like there is this lack mindset that's coming up for you. Like, my health isn't going to get better, or, I don't have enough money, or relationships don't work for me, needing to work out of that and recognizing that, this is about looking at the situation and going, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to make a change, and about persistence and like working your way out of the situation. But I think with Venus in all of these trines, it's about cutting your losses and being like, rather than complaining about this not getting better or not working, I'm going to do something about it. Remember, Jupiter is in your 7th house. You have support from therapists, siblings, friends, neighbors, partners. There's a lot of people here to help you. And you're coming off of an eclipse in your 4th house. So it's either very emotional or tied to like a home or family matter. And now you're recognizing something is now coming to an end. Okay. Hang in there, Sag. I know that can be a difficult reading, but I'm optimistic that whatever changes, it's changing for the better. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to experience Venus transiting through Scorpio in your natal 11th house. Obviously, Venus has associations with your career and reputation in the 10th, and also creativity, self-expression, romance, and children in the 5th. So Venus moving through the 11th house is bringing up themes revolving around friendships transforming, deep connections with groups or society at large, parties, socializing, collaborations with people from work, and meeting, people who can help transform your career, meeting somebody or maybe finding love at a party. and also connections to self-expression, creativity, joining creative groups or networks or parties that are going to be involving younger people or creatives can be coming up. I really like some of these aspects for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. I feel like with Venus trine Saturn, there can be certain connections you can make with people either online or in a social setting that can really help you connect, communicate, and feel more so supported professionally. So it could be meetings, contracts, negotiations, traveling that lead to these connections. So great for like making announcements on the internet, you know, signing contracts or issuing contracts. And Venus is also going to trine Mars, which is in your 7th house of relationships. So it's really enhancing if you're socializing, bringing in more clients, if you're being active online, getting more recognition, if you're going to parties, meeting potential romantic partners. And that connection with your 5th house Lord, where you're going out and having fun and having, you know, experiencing pleasure with other people, it's going to really liven up your relationship house and increase the likelihood of you being able to kind of meet somebody and having some really great connections and like exchanges. So I really actually like this for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. I think it's going to be really good for you guys. Look into joining some professional networks, or if you're looking for a new job, reaching out to like-minded people or people that you've worked with before, or anything where you can kind of be throwing your resume into the ring where people can see it, because likely it's going to bring a lot of attention to you. And this is about including other people in some of your endeavors and like reaching out and inviting them, and also like, you know, communicating as well as you can with all of these trines that are going to be happening to Saturn in your 3rd house, which is about communications. Okay, so you got to pick up the phone, you got to say yes to the RSVP, you got to show up to the party, you got to go to the events, even though you may not feel like it. This is a really good time for you, because I think you have the potential to really meet a lot of people. And if you're in a relationship, socialize with your friends and your partners, or travel with your friends and your partner, and it could be something that can be really enriching. The card that I got for you is the 7 of Pentacles. Okay, so this is a card that's about re-evaluating, and you're looking at your long-term investments. This is about being patient, and it's about hard work, success, waiting for your harvest, looking at results, bringing in profits from seeds that you have planted. All right. So, you know, I could see like a little bit of like a cat and mouse game. That's like, you know, I put it out there. Hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for work, because Venus is connected to your 10th. And you've got a friend that's like, I think my company's hiring. Let me send an email and put you in touch with somebody, you know? And then there's like a back and forth, and you're patient, but it works out. Or, you know, you go to a party and, you know, somebody's like, hey, my friend thinks you're cute. And you're like, well, you know, introduce us. And you guys get to know each other and you start talking, but you take your time. Be patient. You know, if you're patient with some of the aspects to Saturn, it's going to pay off. And I also feel like this is about approaching relationships or socializing in a very different way. And learning to trust a little bit and being a little bit more open. All right. Good luck, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys will be experiencing Venus's transit through Scorpio in your natal 10th house. This is the house of career and reputation. Obviously, it's in a sign that squares you. But the Venus in the 10th house transit, I think, is wonderful. It's playing off of your natal 4th house, home, emotion, private life, and family. And also your 9th house of the higher mind, your belief systems, your legal situations. It could be travel. It could be things revolving around working with mentors and teachers, or some kind of status change. So when Venus goes through the 10th house, we do see a lot more love and appreciation at work. Could you meet somebody in the workplace? Yes. Could you, you know, bring in a big partnership or a big deal, get a bonus maybe, or get an award? Sure. Yeah, you could get these things, especially if, you know, you've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and now it's becoming more visible. But this is also revolving around a rise in power, right? And this recognition, or this rise with power or responsibility, it does put you in the spotlight. So, you know, looking your best going to work, really embracing relationships and powerful alliances with people at work, I think is important. It may represent doing some kind of work with family because of Venus's involvement, and some kind of collaboration with family, or work involving home, property, real estate stuff can be coming up. Obviously, Saturn is your traditional ruler. So I'm thinking about, you know, Venus in the 10th house, where there can be some real great recognition for the work that you're doing. And it's aligning with you going, yes, I stayed the path. I stayed committed. I believed in myself. And now look at the results. Now look at the money that I'm making. Or now look at the business that's kind of like, you know, running and it's successful, which is really, really amazing. Venus trine Mars in your 6th house is about like working with a team. It could also be about working with employees, or maybe, you know, having a lot of work to do with Mars in the 6th house. And that's what's, you know, the hard work and the dedication of the work of your team has been really what's putting you in the driver's seat. So it's work with these trines. And it's also for you about how do you feel about how you're making money? How do you feel about what you're producing? And there could be a pretty significant career or status change for the better, I think, with some of these aspects, and feeling like you have a little bit more power and control over where your career is going. However, at some point in the transit, we are going to see Venus start opposing Uranus, which is your modern day ruler, which means this sudden growth going on with your career or your status. It does feel like there is something that's at odds, where you're like, all these good things are happening at work, but like my private life is kind of chaotic, or my home is being torn up, or I'm having to move, or, you know, there's something destabilizing going on for me emotionally. So having to balance both of those things when you see that opposition might be a little tricky for some of you guys, just a heads up. Okay. Card that I got for you is the Four of Pentacles. It's like, do I stay or do I go? You know, what do I do? Am I holding on to something too tight? Am I too focused on work? You know, I could see Venus in the 10th house as like being like, I'm so obsessed with, you know, seeing this through, or making this deal, or, you know, getting this out and doing all of this work. And there's so much focus with the trines to Saturn. But this can be about, well, am I holding on to something too much? You know, am I insecure? Is there a sense of me, you know, being too focused on job security? Is there, you know, are the changes that I'm making going to provide me with long-term security? And it's about thinking in a grounded way, which I think with Venus in opposition to Uranus, you're going to be like, I'm going to do something very different professionally or work-wise that I wouldn't usually do. And maybe some of the changes that are coming are to better kind of support you emotionally, or on the home front. It's possible it can be coming from that as well. All right. Good luck, my Aquarius and Aquarius risings. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 9th house. Obviously, Venus trining Saturn and Mars, you're really reaping the benefits of these water trines. So I think you're going to like them. The 9th house is where Venus is transiting, but she's connected to your 8th house of joint resources, taxes, alimonies, also kind of secret taboo things in relationships. And the 3rd house of communication, networking, short distance travel, learning, vehicles. So Venus in the 9th house for you is going to put an emphasis on finding pleasure through long distance relationships, traveling, education, philosophy, legal matters, and some kind of change revolving around these things can be happening. You know, Venus in the 9th house is a great time to travel. It's also a great time to be working with like a new teacher or a mentor, or if you're wanting to start writing a book, if you're wanting to learn something new, I would be doing that then. And this is about where you're learning about relationships and changes and transformations in relationships because of its connection to your 8th house. 9th house can be, like I said, traveling, going on a trip. It can also be about your in-laws. So with Venus trine Saturn, there's something in alignment about either a long distance relationship, a family member or romantic partner at afar, a relationship with like a teacher or a mentor in helping support you and make you feel like they have, you know, that you have their support. And then Venus coming into a trine with Mars could be also about dating, romance, creativity, self-expression. So traveling to meet children, romantic relationships at afar, learning more about art and beauty and creative expression, or anything revolving around like film or even intimacy, that can be kind of coming up here as well. But the 1st, 5th, and 9th house are traditionally fire houses. So we see a lot of action. I go places, I learn things, you know, I go and take chances. And it's going to be how you're listening to your intuition. And there are going to be times where you're going to be like, okay, you know, I feel good about this. And there are going to be other times where you're going to be like, okay, something seems off here, especially when it comes to navigating travel, relationships, children, or education. You're going to have to really listen to your gut. But I think you're going to like it. I think some of you guys are going to be investing more in your creative endeavors or like personal businesses and learning how to like launch or push new creative projects. It could be about teaching and education and children. So you might be committing more to that, or travel. All right, the card that I get for you is the Tower card. So obviously this is a challenging card. You know, I think about how your chart ruler is in the 4th. And it's been squaring Saturn. It's actually going to come back in December and square again. So there is one side of you that's like, I want to stay put. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to make any changes. And then there's the other side of you that's like, I want to travel. I want to expand. I want to move. I want to relocate. You know, I want to take risks. And you're kind of at odds with yourself. So with this transit, you know, if you have been feeling like you're between a rock and a hard place with a home or a living situation, and you're like, I can't continue living like this, or, you know, I have to make a change with my family or whatever. Even though the Tower is a heavy card, you know, it does represent sudden change and upheaval and major realizations and revelations. It can be good. And I think that the transit can say, you know what, there's a way out of it. If I don't know what I want, I can go and travel to some places. If I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, I can, you know, go back to school. If I can't find love here, I'm going to find it somewhere else. So it's about making lemonade. And yes, Venus is about major change. So maybe there can be some big realizations about relationships and what your relationship beliefs and philosophies are. And some of you guys might look at it and go, you know what, if something's not working, then it's better to be alone than it is to be with something or someone that's not working. And that could be the change that's coming up, and learning how to rely more on yourself and kind of connecting to your own boundaries and your own personal happiness, and going and learning about how to do that stuff, right? I could see a lot of like love coaching coming in from Venus in the 9th house. All right, guys. Well, that was the Venus in Scorpio transit in a nutshell. Obviously, you know, hoping for the best. No whammies. But I'm really excited to see some of the transits. I know there's going to be a lot of depth. There's going to be a lot of emotions. I know that. And it can be a lot for some people with Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto involved. But as you go through the next month or two, just remember, it's a time for deep dives, you know, not shallow swims. Embrace the transformation, really seek more depth and intimacy in your relationships, and maybe just let yourself be a little bit more Scorpio than usual. Expect lots of love, lust, and transformation over the next couple weeks, and stay curious and stay deep about the process. Let me know how it goes. Don't forget to leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys, get some feedback, and hear where this is taking place in your own chart and what you're going to be doing with some of the positive aspects. I'd love to hear about that stuff because I'm all about making lemonade. Anyway, I'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. We're doing live tarot readings. Catch me here at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be reading cards, so you guys can sign up early. We'll post the link in the community tab. Don't forget to subscribe so that way you are alerted as to when my videos are out. And I will see you guys all back here on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.